Hello, everybody. This is Gerald Celente, and we have with us today, and honored to be with us, Judge Andrew Napolitano. When it comes to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, I'll put him up against anybody in America, all around the world, to give you the facts of what they mean, how we've lost those rights, and what we have to do to get them back. Judge, thanks for being on today.
Pleasure to be with you, my dear friend.
You know, you have this article that's coming out tomorrow, and today's April 12th. It comes out tomorrow. The Pentagon Papers, again. Does the government work for us, or do we work for the government? Can the government morally steal data about allies and enemies and then make it a crime to reveal the data, even when the revelation shows that the government has been lying about killing? What to do about high-ranking government officials who lie about war? When the First Amendment states that, quote, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, does it really mean no law? And you go on talking about how these documents are coming out about the Ukraine war, which, by the way, is not a proxy war. The United States is at war, as I see it, with Russia. And these documents prove it. So please tell us more about what you've written about and how they...
Well, let me start by saying that you've been saying this, and we've been saying this for a long time, and the documents substantiate the presence of American special forces on the ground in Ukraine and British special forces as well. But beyond that, the documents show that the American government has known for a long time that the Ukraine side is doomed to fail. The kill ratio favoring Russia is 7-1, meaning the Russians kill 7 Ukrainian soldiers for every 1 Russian that the Ukrainians kill. Now, any high school student could do the math. I mean, that can't last much longer. Ukraine is already down to the point where they are kidnapping people your age and mine, males your age and mine, and 16 and 17-year-olds, training them for 2 weeks and then pushing them to the front lines, from which, of course, they never return. So the government has known that Ukraine was about to lose. When Secretary of Defense Austin testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee, he lied by saying, yeah, Ukraine is in great shape. Look for a good spring and look for many battle successes in the winter, because he already knew about this kill ratio. The documents also reveal that the American government has concluded that Ukraine's air defenses will be degraded to, it's an easy number to remember, 0 effectiveness by the end of May. And former 4-star general, former member of the Raytheon board of directors, now Secretary of Defense Austin, knew about that when he materially misled the Senate Armed Services Committee. So we know that Joe Biden is fighting a land war. And to your point at the outset of this podcast, question, are American boys using American military equipment to fire American ammunition at Russian boys? Answer, yes. Is the American CIA stealing Russian intel and giving it to Ukraine intel? Answer, yes. If that's not a definition of America at war with Russia, I don't know what is.
And Putin said it, America's at war with Russia. And by the way, we had Lloyd Austin, again, who you mentioned, our Secretary of Defense, who formerly sat on the board of directors of Raytheon, the second largest defense contractor, admitting months ago that American advisors were on the ground in Ukraine because of the complexity of the weapons, and saying that we had to make sure that they didn't go in the wrong direction. Or
Correct.
So, in other words, the Americans are firing the weapons at the Russians.
Correct. This very sophisticated HIMARS, I understand it from Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor. The Americans aim them, maintain them, find the target on a computer screen, and then another team in Ukraine, and then another team of Americans west of them in Poland pulls the trigger. That's why I say American boys are using American equipment to fire American ammunition at Russian boys, targeted and aimed by American boys. It's war. It's not even war by another name. It's just war that's not publicly declared. It's war that's not legal, because Biden can't do this without a declaration of war, and Congress can't declare war on anybody it wants. We've signed treaties. Congress can only declare war on a country whose military is threatening ours. Does the Russian military threaten the United States? No. Does the U.S. threaten Russia? Well, let's see. We have nukes in Italy. We have nukes in the Netherlands. We have nukes in Poland aimed at Moscow. Can you imagine how we would react if, say, the Chinese had nukes in Mexico aimed at Dallas? And you'll know how Putin feels.
Yeah. Or the Russians up in Canada with missiles aimed at New York.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Again,
the only intellectually honest person in all of this, the president is not intellectually honest. Tony Blinken is not intellectually honest. Lloyd Austin is not intellectually honest. I'll tell you who is. Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Vladimir Putin said the Americans started this war in 2014 when they fomented that so-called color revolution that overthrew the popularly elected and Russian-aligned president of Ukraine. The Americans started this war when they moved NATO 800 miles eastward, contrary to the promises that Jim Baker and George H.W. Bush made to Mikhail Gorbachev. And as if to poke the NATO elbow in Putin's ribs, what did they just do? Join Finland to NATO. At the height of this war, added another 800 miles of a common border between Russia and NATO. So these characters, these creeps in NATO and in the State Department, they want war. Victoria Nuland, you remember her from the Trump impeachment. She's number 3 in the State Department. She said, we won't rest until the Ukrainian flag is flying over Crimea. Let me tell you that there is more of a chance of Arizona being given back to Mexico than the Ukrainian flag flying over Crimea. Crimea has been part of Russia since 1730.
Yeah, this is the Trends Journal magazine from back in 2014. See how happy that guy is. The United States overthrow of the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine. Article written by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan.
Friend of yours and mine. Yep.
Washington is driving the world to the final war. Ukraine presented the perfect opportunity for Washington to advance its hegemonic agenda. In a speech at the National Press Club last December, which means December 2013, and anybody could Google it up, Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland boasted that Washington had invested $5 billion in non-governmental organizations, NGOs, in Ukraine for the purpose of the NGOs to teach democracy to the people of Ukraine.
In other words, a coup in the streets.
Yep.
Now, that $5 billion, you will never find that in the American federal government budget, even though the Constitution says no monies shall be spent from the Treasury, but for those recorded in a public journal. I'm almost quoting verbatim. The Congress on its own has created the intelligence community and given them hundreds of billions and let them spend it on its own. You'll never find a recording of who actually got that money and what was done with it. Where did the money come from? The American Treasury. How did it get into the American Treasury? Either tax dollars or money borrowed in the name of the taxpayers, who, of course, have to pay it back.
You know, this article that you've written, it's so powerful. And the information that you're providing here, and how the government has really robbed us of our freedom. Congress has not declared war against Russia, but President Joe Biden is surreptitiously fighting one. Congress can only declare war, as you mentioned, on a country whose military is an imminent threat to America. So I want to comment on that, because you're hearing these little loudmouth clowns like Lindsey Graham and all these others, the Blumenthal, another arrogant little boy, one after another. They go to Ukraine and they keep saying that this is